an extraordinary ability for one who perhaps had a background that was much more difficult than we realised. So therefore, the ability to always see positive and move forward must have been built into his psyche. It must have been an incredible challenge to have to deal with.
The memorial service had been designed to honor Diana, Princess of Wales, with dignity, silence, and carefully guarded tradition. But only minutes before the royal family was due to enter, Prince William discovered that Meghan had been assigned the symbolic position directly behind Diana's memorial wreath. His reaction was immediate. Before the doors opened, and before the cameras began recording, the future king ordered her removed from the place associated with his mother. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William entered the private assembly room that morning and stopped without greeting anyone. Meghan stood near the white rose wreath, positioned for the procession, while relatives, charity leaders, former staff, and guests connected to Diana's work waited nearby. The memorial service was a ceremony honoring her life and legacy, and the procession was the ordered entrance through which the family would define who stood closest to that memory. The prince stared at the final schedule, then at Meghan. The place directly behind the wreath carried weight because it represented Diana's immediate bloodline and protected the tribute from becoming about anyone else. Palace planners privately called it Diana's place. William had approved an earlier version placing her sons at the center. Now Meghan's name occupied that position. He did not hesitate. William turned to the master of ceremonies, the official directing the service, and instructed him to remove Meghan from the immediate family tribute and assign her another entrance. She heard every word. Her shoulders remained straight, yet humiliation reached her face as conversations around them vanished. Meghan looked toward Harry, but he offered no immediate answer. The shock deepened when the prince examined the procession sheet. Someone had changed it after his approval. The revised page was not a careless draft or innocent error. It carried the markings of a final instruction. William asked who had authorized it. Silence followed. Charles arrived moments later and accepted the document. The king read the altered line, placed the sheet on the table, and looked from his son to Meghan. He refused to overrule William before them, but his silence revealed that the decision reached beyond ceremonial planning. Meghan was guided toward a separate doorway. She slowed beside Harry and quietly asked whether his brother had been waiting for an excuse to do this. He watched William remain beside the wreath, unable to dismiss the possibility that something older and more painful surfaced. Because Meghan had not merely lost a place in the memorial, she had been publicly separated from Diana's legacy, and every person inside that room understood how personal William's decision had become. For William, the memorial was not another royal engagement. It was a return to the deepest wound of his life. For Harry, it was a final chance to prove that distance had not erased his connection to his mother. And for Meghan, the ceremony carried a different meaning, the possibility of standing beside Diana's memory as a woman who had also struggled beneath royal pressure. Those competing emotions were now moving toward collision. William remained beside the wreath after the room emptied. He adjusted a handwritten tribute card, then stopped when his fingers reached the word mummy. The prince had learned to carry grief beneath duty, but memorial appearances stripped that protection away. For him, royal protocol, the formal rules controlling ceremonies and rank, mattered only when it guarded Diana's memory from publicity or personal positioning. This service mattered because it belonged to a son before it belonged to the crown. Meghan found Harry in a side room and told him the removal had been designed to make her appear unworthy. She believed years of media attacks and isolation had created a bond between her experience and Diana's suffering. The Duchess did not see the position as a prize. She saw it as recognition that another woman had survived pressure from the same institution. Harry wanted to defend his wife, yet he understood why his brother viewed that place as sacred. Catherine learned of the dispute while fastening a remembrance brooch, a piece of jewelry worn to honor someone who had died. She closed the case and looked at William. The princess reminded him that she had originally been assigned to walk behind the wreath, but had privately stepped aside so Diana's sons could approach it together. Her choice had been meant to heal them, not create another contest. "Do not let honoring her become the battle that damages both of you," she said. Harry approached the flowers before the service and reached toward one white rose. He withdrew his hand when he noticed William watching from across the room. Neither brother spoke. Meghan saw the hesitation, and Catherine saw the pain behind it. Everyone understood that one altered position had reopened old mistrust. Then William's aide discovered a folded copy of the earlier plan inside his briefing folder. A procession plan was the official order showing where each participant would walk. Catherine's name had been replaced with Meghan's during a late-night planning exchange, less than 12 hours earlier. Whoever made the change had access to senior royal instructions. The altered page transformed an emotional disagreement into something more dangerous, because William now believed someone had deliberately tested how far he would go to defend his mother's place. The decision had not begun on the morning of the memorial. Its true origin lay 3 days earlier, during a closed rehearsal inside the chapel. There were no crowds, no live cameras, and no public controversy, only a wreath, an empty lectern, and one request that changed the entire meaning of the ceremony. Those present would later remember the silence that followed, because in that instant William realized the memorial was becoming a struggle over Diana's symbolic inheritance. William entered the rehearsal expecting a simple final review. Catherine stood beside him, while Harry and Meghan waited near the front with a senior chaplain and 2 ceremonial coordinators. The rehearsal was a private practice used to confirm the order of entry, speeches, and ceremonial duties before the public service. The original arrangement was clear. Diana's sons would walk together behind her wreath, while their wives followed several steps back in support. Meghan changed everything with one request. She asked whether she could walk alone behind the wreath and deliver the final reflection from Diana's lectern. A lectern is the stand from which official readings and speeches are delivered. She argued that her own experience inside the royal family gave her the right voice to speak about isolation, compassion, and survival. William stared at her in controlled disbelief. The prince told Meghan that the memorial was not a platform for personal comparison, and that Diana's suffering could not be used to strengthen someone else's story. She tightened her expression and replied that silencing her only proved how little the institution had learned from the past. Harry stepped in before the argument hardened further. He insisted that his wife was not trying to replace his mother. William answered that intention no longer mattered when the symbolism was impossible to ignore. One woman would stand alone behind Diana's wreath. One woman would speak from her lectern. The message would be unmistakable. Then William noticed the printed rehearsal card already resting beside the microphone. Meghan's name appeared beneath the final reflection. He removed it, folded it once, and placed it on the table. No one moved. That quiet gesture ended the discussion, but it also exposed something far more troubling. Catherine examined the card later and realized it had been printed before Meghan made her request. The princess understood immediately. Someone involved in planning had already discussed the role and expected it to be approved. When she questioned the senior coordinator, he admitted in a documented rehearsal account that the instruction had arrived through a private office, carrying enough authority that staff did not challenge it. William confronted Charles that evening and asked whether the king's office had authorized the change. The monarch hesitated. He did not deny it quickly enough. By the morning of the service, William was no longer confronting a misunderstanding. He was confronting the possibility that his father had allowed Diana's memorial to become a test of competing loyalties. The confrontation happened behind a closed door, only 20 minutes before the memorial procession. William entered first. Meghan followed with Harry beside her, while Catherine remained near the doorway. No aides were permitted inside. No notes were taken. What followed was not a debate about walking order. It was a collision between grief and identity, between a son protecting his mother and a woman refusing to be treated as an intruder. William had already ordered staff to restore the original arrangement, but Meghan refused to accept the decision through an official. She wanted to hear it from him. The private room beside the chapel served as the family's final holding area before a ceremony, meaning it was the last place where changes could be made before the public entrance. Every minute mattered. Guests were seated, the wreath was ready, and the doors would soon open. Meghan faced William and asked why he believed walking behind the flowers meant replacing Diana. The prince did not look away, because that place belongs to her sons, not to anyone attempting to inherit her story. The words landed hard. Meghan accused him of using grief as a wall whenever anyone challenged the family's protected version of Diana. Her voice remained controlled, but Harry noticed her hands trembling and moved closer. She told William that honoring a woman's pain was not the same as stealing her identity. William turned toward Harry and demanded to know why he had allowed the arrangement to proceed. The younger brother insisted that his wife wanted to honor their mother, not claim her place. Yet his answer lacked the certainty Meghan expected. Harry knew the symbolism was powerful. Supporting her now meant accepting a plan that had pushed both his brother and Catherine away from the central tribute. Catherine finally stepped forward. She explained that she had surrendered her original position only so Diana's sons could lead together. The princess had offered that private gesture because she believed the memorial should unite William and Harry. She told Meghan calmly that her decision had never been permission for another person to occupy the symbolic place behind the wreath. William lifted the revised procession sheet. A procession sheet was the official document listing where each person would walk during the ceremony. He tore away the strip carrying Meghan's name and placed the remaining page beside the chapel bell. The decision was final. Harry looked from his wife to his brother and understood the trap completely. Defending Meghan would now mean opposing Catherine's sacrifice and weakening his own place beside William. Then the door opened. Charles entered after hearing the raised voices. The king studied the torn schedule, his son's expressions, and Meghan's rigid silence. He announced that he would decide whose authority governed the service. The argument had reached the king, but Charles now faced a choice that would expose whether he intended to protect family unity, royal hierarchy, or the memory of the woman whose absence still divided them all. Charles did not raise his voice. That made the room more frightening. He picked up the damaged procession sheet, examined the missing strip, and asked each person the same question: who had approved the change? No one answered. Yet the king already understood that the immediate crisis was larger than Meghan's position. If he overruled William, he would wound his son at Diana's memorial. If he supported him, Harry would see another rejection. Charles held the final ceremonial authority because the monarch had the last word over official royal services. Yet William carried something no title could replace: the moral authority of Diana's son and the future responsibility of guiding the monarchy. Outside the room, palace staff waited for instructions while the congregation filled the chapel. Every minute of silence made the approaching entrance more dangerous. The king sat at the end of the table with both versions of the procession plan before him. A procession plan was the official document setting the order in which family members entered and walked during the service. He removed his glasses, pressed his fingers against his eyes, and admitted that Diana's name still transformed every family choice into an emotional reckoning. Charles had spent years trying to steady the crown, yet one memorial had returned his sons to the pain he could never fully repair. Harry moved first. He asked his father to stop Meghan from being humiliated before the entire world. The younger prince argued that she had already been removed and should not be forced to enter as though nothing had happened. Charles listened, then told him that protecting her feelings could not require the family to ignore the meaning of the place she had occupied. William made the stakes final. He told the king that if Meghan remained directly behind the wreath, he would not join the procession. Catherine looked at him in shock. The future king was prepared to abandon the public tribute rather than allow its central message to be changed. Charles finally confirmed that he had never approved Meghan's placement. A private liaison and official who carried messages between senior offices had sent the instruction using language that suggested royal consent without obtaining it. The message called "the change away of modernizing Diana's legacy." That phrase exposed the truth. Someone had tried to reshape the memorial around Meghan's public story. The monarch placed the revised schedule inside a leather folder and closed it. He restored the original order. William and Harry would lead together, while Catherine and Meghan followed separately according to seniority, meaning their official rank within the royal family. Meghan did not move. She asked whether she was expected to enter the chapel and pretend they had not just declared her unworthy of Diana's compassion. The king had settled the procession, but he had not settled the humiliation, and as the chapel doors prepared to open, Meghan's reaction threatened to turn a private defeat into a visible royal rupture. When the doors finally opened, the procession looked orderly. William and Harry walked behind the wreath. Catherine followed at a measured distance. Meghan entered farther back, her expression composed beneath the attention of hundreds of watching eyes. To the public, it lasted only seconds. Inside the family, every step carried the weight of the confrontation. The arrangement had been corrected, but the emotional damage was now moving through the chapel in full view. William and Harry remained directly behind the white rose wreath, while Catherine and Meghan followed in separate positions. Ceremonial spacing, the carefully planned distance between people during an official service, could define who represented the deceased and who attended in support. Casual viewers might overlook a few steps, Royal observers would not. Every movement could be read as unity, hierarchy, or exclusion. Meghan heard the chapel doors close behind her and stopped for a brief second. Harry glanced back immediately. William continued forward beside the wreath, forcing his brother to choose between preserving the tribute and turning toward his wife. The younger prince hesitated, then followed. That choice lasted only a moment, but she felt its meaning. The hymn deepened the silence. Meghan avoided looking toward William and gripped her service booklet until its edge bent beneath her fingers. Harry sat beside her, yet his attention repeatedly crossed the aisle toward his brother. The Duke wanted to comfort his wife, but he also knew their mother's memorial could not survive another open confrontation. William approached the wreath after the reading and touched the ribbon bearing Diana's name. Meghan lowered her eyes. Anger gave way to sadness, as she understood that the service was continuing without the speech, position, or recognition she had expected. Catherine noticed the change but remained still, knowing that any gesture could be misunderstood. Then a staff member found Meghan's prepared reflection inside the lectern. The lectern was the raised stand used for official readings during the ceremony. William saw the pages and refused to have them destroyed or returned while guests remained nearby. He would not create another public scene. Catherine collected the speech after the congregation departed. She read the opening paragraph and froze. Meghan's words directly compared her struggle under royal pressure with Diana's isolation, confirming why the proposed reading had carried such dangerous symbolism. Outside, Harry reached for Meghan's hand. She allowed his fingers to close around hers for 1 second, before pulling away and entering the waiting car alone. Harry did not follow. He turned back toward the chapel, found William, and asked for 5 minutes without their wives, their father, or any palace official present. For the first time that day, the conflict was stripped of schedules, titles, and ceremonial authority, leaving only 2 brothers standing beneath their mother's name. William and Harry met in the empty memorial garden after the guests had departed. There were no aides behind them, no cameras close enough to hear, and no father waiting to settle the argument. Between them stood a stone engraved with Diana's name. For several moments, neither brother spoke. The ceremony had forced them into the same place, but the decisions surrounding it had exposed how differently they now understood loyalty, protection, and the mother they had both lost. Harry had chosen the garden because both brothers had visited it during quieter years, before distance turned every meeting into a test. The memorial garden was a private space created to preserve Diana's memory, away from official ceremonies and public duties. Here, William and his brother were not senior royals defending positions. They were 2 sons, standing beside the name that still carried their deepest grief. Harry finally admitted why he had asked to speak alone. Defending Meghan in front of the family had prevented him from asking whether her proposed role had ever been appropriate. Yet every rejection of his wife felt like a repetition of the pressure that had isolated Diana. The younger prince feared that silence would make him guilty of abandoning another woman he loved. William answered with exhausted anger. He told Harry that using their mother's suffering to justify Meghan's place behind the wreath was exactly what he could not accept. Seeing her name on the procession sheet had felt like someone was rewriting Diana's story while he was still grieving it. The future king's voice softened, but the pain beneath it became sharper. Harry lowered his guard. He confessed that he had never approved Meghan walking alone behind the flowers. He assumed the suggestion would be rejected quietly, so he avoided challenging her. He feared she would treat his objection as betrayal after everything they had endured together. William pointed toward Diana's engraved name and asked whether she would have wanted either son's marriage used as a weapon against the other. Harry looked at the stone, but no answer came. His silence became the first honest admission of the day. Then Harry disclosed the source of the idea. During a recorded planning conversation, a communications advisor had encouraged Meghan's speech, arguing that comparing her experience with Diana's would create a powerful message of survival. What sounded moving in strategy had become painful in practice. William told his brother that Meghan's suffering could be real without making her the custodian of Diana's identity. Harry finally understood. The removal had not been an attempt to erase his wife. It had been a boundary around their mother. Before leaving, Harry asked William to let Meghan place 1 private flower after the crowds had gone without a speech, procession, or symbolic claim. That private request offered a path away from public rivalry, but the world outside the garden had already transformed the memorial into a judgment on Meghan, William, and the monarchy itself. By evening, one image had overtaken every speech delivered at the memorial. William walking directly behind Diana's wreath, while Meghan appeared several steps farther back. To some, it showed a son protecting his mother's memory. To others, it showed the monarchy drawing another unforgiving boundary around a woman who had challenged it. The private reasoning no longer mattered. The spacing between two figures had become an international argument about grief, status, and belonging. Broadcasters replayed the chapel entrance frame by frame. Commentators studied Harry's backward glance, William's steady pace, and the distance separating Meghan from the central tribute. Ceremonial spacing, the planned distance between participants in an official event, had become a public language of rank, representation, and exclusion. A few silent steps now carried more force than every word spoken inside the service. Palace Communications issued a brief statement declaring that Diana's sons had led the wreath procession by mutual family agreement. The communications office was the royal team responsible for official statements and media responses. Its careful wording made no mention of the altered schedule, Meghan's removal, or the confrontation before the ceremony. That silence only intensified speculation. William watched the coverage beside Catherine and grew troubled as commentators described his decision as punishment. The prince had believed he was protecting his mother's place, yet the world now saw cruelty as easily as devotion. Catherine reminded him that refusing to explain every private wound would never stop strangers from inventing motives. Still, she knew the judgment hurt him. Meghan faced a different pain. She listened as one commentator questioned whether she had tried to present herself as Diana's successor. The Duchess switched off the television before the sentence ended and told Harry that the removal had now defined her more powerfully than the position ever could have. He reminded her of his conversation with William, but she could not yet separate the boundary from the humiliation. Outside Kensington Palace, a crowd gathered beside the gates carrying white roses. One woman placed 2 flowers beneath Diana's photograph, labeling one for William and one for Harry. Moments later, another visitor removed a handwritten card comparing Meghan to the late princess. The single act captured a country divided between sympathy and resistance. Mourning brought an even sharper verdict. A major newspaper appeared beneath the headline, "Diana's Place. William draws the line." A broadcaster then disclosed, through a documented account from the planning team, that the procession plan had changed twice within 12 hours. Public opinion remained divided, but one distinction hardened. Compassion for Meghan's suffering did not automatically grant her Diana's symbolic place. Late that night, Meghan returned to the memorial garden with Harry. Beside the wreath, William had left one final private instruction. Away from headlines and ceremonial positions, Meghan was about to discover that William's final boundary contained neither public punishment nor surrender, but a far more personal verdict. The garden was empty when Meghan and Harry returned. Diana's wreath remained beneath the memorial light, but the procession cards, speeches, and security barriers had been removed. Beside the flowers lay a single white rose and a handwritten message from William. It did not apologize for removing Meghan. It did not accuse her of ambition. Instead, it contained one sentence that finally explained the entire decision. "You may honor her, but no one is required to become her." Meghan read the message twice, while Harry remained beside her. William had approved his brother's request for a private tribute, allowing her to place a flower without granting her Diana's ceremonial identity. A ceremonial identity is the symbolic role someone represents during an official royal event. The distinction mattered because Diana's influence could be admired and continued. But her place within the family belonged to her memory and the sons who carried that loss. Meghan felt her anger resist the words. Yet the message forced her to confront something painful. Public comparisons with Diana had slowly become tied to her own need for recognition. She had wanted compassion, but the memorial position would have made her appear to claim something deeper. Harry finally admitted his failure. He told Meghan that he should have challenged the arrangement before William was forced to reject it publicly. The prince apologized to his wife for remaining silent, and to his mother's memory for allowing her service to become a test of loyalty. Meghan lifted the white rose and placed it beside the wreath rather than on top of it. The choice was small, but its meaning was unmistakable. She could honor Diana without standing at the center of her tribute. Harry met William the following morning. He insisted that their mother's memorial position should never again be assigned through staff negotiation. The brothers agreed that future tributes would be led jointly by Diana's children. while spouses would support them without representing her. Charles then ordered a permanent ceremonial protocol, a formal rule governing royal services, to protect memorial roles connected to deceased senior royals. The king's decision ensured that unofficial influence, private advisors, or strategic messaging could never again alter such personal symbolism. William's removal of Meghan had never meant that her suffering was false, or that she had no right to honor Diana. It meant that empathy did not create inheritance, resemblance did not create ownership, and admiration did not grant one woman another woman's place. Diana's memorial therefore ended without victory or defeat. The family finally defended the boundary it should have protected from the beginning. Her legacy could inspire millions, but it could not be transferred, staged, or claimed. Her place had never been empty. It had remained hers all along. And when the final white rose rested beside the wreath, the monarchy's verdict was complete. Diana could inspire those who came after her, but no one, not a duchess, a prince, or a palace, could ever take her place. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.